A young Jewish girl sacrifices everything to get close to a Nazi officers. She sacrificed everything to get close to a Nazi officers in order to infiltrate the enemy and steal information. She took off her clothes of her own accord and let the officers admire her naked body. Once upon a time, Rachel, she had a happy family. Her longtime boyfriend was about to marry her. But when the war broke out, the Nazi chief, who hated the Jews, launched a campaign of ethnic cleansing. Rachel and her family were trying to survive. They boarded a cargo ship to Belgium to join their uncle, who had made his home there. But to everyone's surprise, the ship was discovered by the Nazis on the way. Before the people on board could react, the bullets were coming at them. Rachel, hiding in the stern, saw what was happening. Rachel jumped into the lake when the Nazis weren't looking. When the shooting stopped, no one was left alive, and Rachel dove underwater and swam to the shore. And that's when she realized the Nazis were searching for the bodies of their families, the money hidden in their socks and underwear, necklaces and jewelry, the gold hidden in the suitcases. The Nazis had taken them all. Seeing what happened to her family after they died, Rachel, hiding in the distance, was furious, but she couldn't do anything about it. In the end, she could only leave in silence. Rachel escaped from the Germans. She found the underground resistance to the Nazis. To hide her painful past, Rachel made a radical change. She not only dyed her hair blonde, she spoke fluent German. The organization saw how she fit the image of a German woman. Rachel was given an assignment with a partisan leader to transport a Mogherini into Germany. But soon there was trouble. On the train, they were confronted by an officer searching for identification. The captain immediately drew his gun. The captain drew his rifle to cover Rachel, who was carrying a radio. But what the captain didn't expect, Rachel slapped him in the face. Then she turned around and left with the radio. Then Rachel went to the compartment with her luggage. Here she met an SS major. He was a gentleman. He helped Rachel with her luggage. He didn't doubt the identity of the beautiful woman in front of him. But no sooner had Rachel sat her down, the SS searched the place. And that's when Rachel sat her down next to the major. When the SS pushed open the door of the compartment, he saw his superior. He closed the door and left. Rachel used her wits to defuse the crisis. After an exchange of words, Rachel learned that the major's name was Simon. They had a nice conversation all the way until the train arrived at the final station, and the major, who was not yet satisfied, invited Rachel to his home to get to know each other better. But Rachel refused because the captain was waiting for her in the distance. They had a more important mission to fulfill. After saying goodbye to the major, Rachel was able to meet up with the captain. They were headed for the mission site, but what no one expected, the truck they were transporting supplies in was trying to avoid children in the middle of the road. To avoid the children, the truck's cargo was strewn all over the place. The weapons and equipment inside were exposed. The police who came to maintain order found a large amount of contraband in the car. They blew the whistle for the SS. The Nazis, hearing the whistle, arrived quickly. They arrested the men before they could escape. The leader of the underground saw what was happening. He was ready to go out and save them, but the captain stopped him. He told the leader, who was overcome with rage, if he rushed out to save them, he would kill more of his comrades. In the end, as everyone watched, the men carrying the supplies were taken away by the SS. But in order to prevent them from revealing information, they decided to agree on a plan to escape. Rachel thought of SS Major Simon, so she dressed up beautifully. She went to Simon's office. She knew that he was a great collector of stamps, so Rachel took a box of stamps from her bag. At the sight of these treasures, Simon was very impressed. After the conversation, he invited Rachel to a dinner party. Before the dinner began, Rachel looked at the fat man playing the piano. She recognized him right away. It was the man who killed her family, a face she would never forget. Suddenly, she felt sick to her stomach. Rachel rushed into the bathroom and started to vomit. Simon, who was very concerned about her, rushed after her, and they sat her in the living room, drinking and talking. Simon was curious and asked Rachel if she could stay today. If she could stay today. After receiving an affirmative answer, Simon took Rachel to his room. A striptease ensued. The Nazi officers ripped off the Jewish girl's clothes and looked at her overly colored blonde hair. The officers suspected that she was a spy. To prove her identity, Rachel took off her clothes, revealing her naked body for the other officers to see. The captain was relieved to see this. He began to enjoy his dinner. It was from this night on that Rachel became a major. Rachel became the major's bedmate. In order to get her in and out of the command post, the major gave Rachel a job. She was to translate documents here. That day, the leader of the underground found Rachel. He gave her a new assignment. She was to use her position to plant a bug in the SS office. And then, Rachel, who had been given the assignment, infiltrated when no one was looking. After finding the right place to put it, Rachel pulled out a wire hidden in a stocking. She hid it behind the portrait of SS Chief Simon. By the time Simon realized something was wrong and pushed his way in, Rachel had accomplished her mission. She used her beauty to assuage Simon's suspicions. When she returned to the underground stronghold, she found her comrades eavesdropping. Suddenly, a familiar voice came from inside. Rachel's eyes widened. Rachel's eyes widened as she ran the voice through her mind. Suddenly, Rachel remembered a man, the extraditor, who helped the family escape. Through the wiretap, the information came to her. The rendition agent had been in league with the Nazi officers. He pretended to rescue Jews. He lured rich families onto cargo ships. Then he told the officers their routes. In the end, all that awaited them was death. In this way, the two of them, they took a lot of treasure from the Jews. When Rachel heard this, could no longer control her anger. She wanted the organization to kill the rendition in secret. Then the captain followed Rachel and followed the man to a side street. When no one was around, they used a potion to knock out the renditionist, but to everyone's surprise, he faked his unconsciousness and fooled everyone. After breaking free, renditioner managed to escape. The captain chased him to the river. They fought on the ground. In the end, he was shot dead by the team members who arrived. The fat man was furious after learning that his partner had been killed. He decided to execute all the prisoners of the underground party to vent his anger. When the underground party received this news, the underground party decided to formulate a plan to rescue their partner. In order to delay the execution of the prisoners, Rachel decided to use Simon's hand to take out the fat man first. Then they reported to their superiors that Fatty was using his position to hide a large amount of money. Unexpectedly, in his office safe, there was nothing but documents. The superiors felt that they had been fooled, turned around, and was about to leave the place. But the next moment, Fatty reported to his superiors that Simon had colluded with the underground party to pass information. He exposed all their confidential documents. Seeing this situation, the superiors would rather kill 1,000 people by mistake. They'd rather kill 1,000 than let one go. They ordered the guards to take Simon away. Seeing that the delaying plan failed, the underground immediately organized their equipment. They decided to break into the prison and rescue him. But as soon as the plan was put into action, they were ambushed. The prisoners in the cell weren't prisoners at all. They were heavily armed SS men. Finally, the team that came to rescue them, only the captain escaped. At the same time, Rachel was taken to the office by the fat officers. He took down the portrait on the wall. He took out the bot inside. He knew who Rachel was, and then he set her up. Now everyone thinks Rachel's gone rogue, but only the captain knew Rachel was the one who suffered the most. This beautiful woman caught the champagne that fell from the Germans. Her soaked clothes excited everyone in the room, while all eyes were drawn to her. The woman gave a look to her companion. The soldier understood what she meant and acted immediately. He went through a secret passage to the underground cell. After knocking out the only guard, he rescued Simon, who was being held captive. Simon was worried about Rachel's torturing Chris. He also rescued her during his escape. They managed to leave the prison in the dark. They came to a place where no one knew what was going on. By now, the Germans were losing the war on the front lines. More and more countries were being liberated. Realizing that the situation was bad, the fat man took a yacht that had been prepared and left. As he drove the boat to the middle of the sea, she suddenly lost power and stopped. Sensing something unusual, the officers went to the powerhouse to check it out. They didn't expect the captain to come out without saying a word. He shot him dead. At the same time in Holland, all the inhabitants of Holland welcomed the arrival of the Allies. The streets were filled with women carrying signs of humiliation. Their beautiful hair had been brutally cut off because they had all served the Nazis. They all served the Nazis. At that moment, Rachel and Simon. Rachel and Simon found the house of the underground leader. The moment they saw Rachel, he looked surprised. Then Simon threatened him with a gun, then forced him back into his room, and then questioned the leader if he had betrayed his identity. Because he knew all the operations of the underground, only his identity is the most suspicious. At that moment, the leader took out a black book from his pocket. He says it's a record of all the identities of the underground, including double agents in the German camp. As to who betrayed Rachel, maybe the black book will give us the answer. After that, he got up. He decided to take Rachel to the police to prove her identity. But the next moment, the leader and his wife were shot dead. Seeing this situation, Simon immediately chased after them. But before he could find the assassins, someone recognized Simon, a former SS man. He was dragged to the execution ground and shot several times. He died on the spot. Rachel, meanwhile, was taken to a concentration camp as a traitor. Here she was treated unfairly. Soldiers beat her wildly and poured feces all over her body. As the soldiers were about to continue humiliating Rachel, the captain arrived with the news. He rescued Rachel from the camp. When the captain took her back to the apartment, Rachel anxiously asked where Simon was. She was told that he had been killed. Rachel was devastated. The captain immediately took out a tranquilizer. He was going to give it to Rachel to calm her down. Then he took her to the bed. But suddenly Rachel started to lose consciousness. She looked at the medication and realized that it wasn't a tranquilizer at all. It was a shot of adrenaline, and that's when the captain told Rachel, in half an hour, she'll be brain dead, and that she would be a hero in this country. A hero of the country, a hero who would enjoy the glory of the masses. Until that moment, Rachel realized the person who betrayed her was the captain. And then, when they were not looking, Rachel remembered the chocolate in her bag. She tried her best to take out a piece. After eating the whole thing, she was able to stand up, and Rachel jumped down to the first floor in front of the captain. She was able to blend in with the crowd. She escaped. In the end, Rachel took the black book and went to the person who introduced him to the party. He gave him the captain's identity and the black book. It turns out that 6 months ago, the captain was captured by the Nazis after a failed mission. Because of his cowardly behavior, he was afraid of death. He ended up becoming a double agent for the Nazis. At the end of the story, Rachel and her men found the captain's bed and locked him in a coffin. He was buried in a grave with a lot of money. If you're interested, you can watch the original movie, Black Book.